Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video lecture we will discuss about simplex method. So let's start. So simplex method is an iterative method to find the optimal solution, right? So in order to find the optimal solution we have to go by iteration to iteration. From one iteration to find the better solution we have to go for the next iteration until the optimal solution is found. So it is an iterative method. Graphical method is convenient to use when there is only two decision variables, right? That we have seen in our previous videos. That graphical method you can easily solve the linear programming problem having two decision variable using graphical method. But with the help of simplex method you can solve any linear programming problem with any number of decision variables. So that is the advantage of using simplex method. You can deal with any number of decision variables. Simplex method attempts to move from one corner point of the solution to a better solution until the optimal is found. So here one solution space of a certain problem is given, feasible region which is bounded by all the constraints. So there are three constraints. Here let's say on x-axis x1 product is there and on y-axis x2 product is there, and the feasible region is bounded by three constraints 1, 2 and 3. So this is the feasible region in which the solution is lying. Now what is the meaning of this? Simplex method attempts to move from one corner point of the solution to a better solution. So what simplex method do? If let's say point A is the better solution than the point O, then at the end of first iteration it will give you the solution as a point A, right? Better solution as a point A. Similar way, if point B is better solution than the point A, then at the end of second iteration simplex method will give you the solution as a point B. In same manner all the corner points are evaluated, right? So I hope it is clear now. The algorithm is very efficient because it considers only those feasible solutions which are provided by the corner point. Moreover, not all the corner points are evaluated in the solution process. Let's say after evaluating O, A, B and C point, you have found that C point is the optimal point, like optimal solution. So it will not go for the point D to check whether that particular point is the optimal solution or not, right? So in this process all the corner points are not evaluated. However, computations are very tedious, repetitive and boring, right? So you have to do the same task for repeatedly until the optimal solution is found. Now general form of an LPP. Any linear programming problem can be converted into this general form. So let's say for n decision variables and m constraint, assume that decision variables are let's say x1, x2, x3 up to xn, then any problem can be converted into this general form. So objective function either may be in terms objective function either of maximization type or either of minimization type. So z is equals to c1 x1 plus c2 x2 c3 x3 up to cn xn, where c1 c2 c3 are the coefficient of objective function, x1 x2 x3 are the decision variables and subjected to linear constraint a11 x1 a12 x2 up to a1n xn. These are the types of constraint that might be possible. The constraint may be of less than or equal to type, may be of equal to type, or may be of greater than or equal to type. And b1, b2 and bm are the right hand side of the constraint. So all the constraints are linear constraint, and a1, a11, a12, a1n, a21 are the coefficient of the constraint, and b1, b2, bm are the right hand side of the constraint. And this x1, x2, x3, xn greater than or equal to 0, this is known as non-negative constraint, which is very important, right? So this indicates non-negative constraint. So this is the general form of LPP. Any linear programming problem can be converted into this form. Now let's see the example. A furniture company manufactures 2 product, chair and table. Each unit of chair requires 2 kg of wood and 3 labor hours for producing. So in order to manufacture 1 unit of chair, it requires 2 kg of wood and 3 labor hours, while 1 unit of table requires 3 kg of wood and 3 labor hours. Every week the company has an availability of 60 kg of wood and 96 labor hours. 1 unit of chair yields 40 rupees profit, while 1 unit of table gives you 35 rupees as a profit. Formulate this problem as a linear programming problem to determine as to how many units of each of the products should be produced per week so that company can earn maximum profit. So here, first of all, identify the type of objective function. So it is clearly indicates that objective function is of maximization type. So maximize profit Z. Now identify the decision variables. So here we have to take a decision that how many units of chair and table we should produce in order to achieve the maximum profit, right? So our decision variables are x1 equal to number of units of chair to be produced, and x2 equal to number of unit of table to be produced, right? So these are our 2 decision variables, and this is the objective function. Maximize Z is equals to 40x1 plus 35x2. 40 and 35 are the profit coefficient, and subjected to linear constraint, 2 linear constraints. Here there are 2 constraints. One is the availability of wood and availability of labor hours. So here 2x1 plus 3x2 less than or equal to 60, that indicates the amount of wood, and the next constraint is amount of labor hours. So per week company have only 96 labor hours, while as per week company has 60 kg of wood, right? So this is the formulation of an LPP. Any LPP program, any linear programming problem can be represented in this manner. Either it has objective function of maximization type or minimization type, and subjected to certain constraint, either of less than or equal to type, greater than or equal to type, or equal to type, and one non-negative constraint. Okay, so this is the general form of an LPP. Now assumptions in LPP. So first assumption is proportionality. So it assumes that there is a constant returns to a scale and no economies of scale. If product A contributes 10 rupees to the profit, then total contribution would be 10x1, where x1 is the number of product A. So it is generally understood that as the number of production of product increases, the cost of the particular product decreases, right? But here it is not like that. Here, if you produce 1 unit, if 1 unit of product A contributes 10 rupees, so 10 units of product A contributes 100 rupees, 1000 units of product A contributes 10,000 rupees, and 10,000 units of product A contributes 1 lakh rupees to the profit. No price discounted here. Second assumption is additivity. So it implies that total of all activity is given by sum of profit contributed by each of the products separately. Let's see over here. So objective function is profit maximization, right? And it consists of 2 terms. So first term is nothing but profit contributed by product A. Second term is nothing but profit contributed by product B. So this is what the additivity. Similar way, resources are also like that. So total consumption of resource of wood is equal to resources consumed by product A and resources consumed by product B. Similar way, total consumption of labor hours is equal to labor hour used by product A and labor hour used by product B. So this is what the meaning of additivity, and no interaction between decision variables. Any decision variables are not dependent to each other. For example, like if the product is two chemicals which are derived from the or which are dependent on each other, products like milk and buttermilk, those are also dependent on each other. So here we assume that there is no any interaction between these two decision variables. Next is continuity. So decision variables are continuous as consequences. Combination of fractional values in the context of production problem are possible and obtained frequently. For example, best solution might be of to be produced 2.7 units of product A and 10.33 units of product B per week. Many times in certain problems, like for how many machines should be purchased, so in those kind of problems you might get 3.5 machines, right? 7.3 men. Such a situation may arise because of decision variables are continuous in nature. So there are certain methods that you can deal with this kind of situation. We will see that later on. Next assumption is certainty. In LPP, objective function coefficient of constraint and resource value are known with certainty. LPP is deterministic in nature, and the next assumption is finite choices. And LPP assume that limited number of choices are available to decision maker, and decision variable do not assume negative values. So only non-negative levels of activity are considered feasible, right? So all the decision variables are non-negative. Now there are two types of form that you can convert your LPP. One is canonical form and another is standard form. Now let's see what is characteristics of canonical form and standard form. So in canonical form, objective function is of maximization type only, right? If objective function is not maximization type, you can convert it into maximization type by using certain elementary transformation that we will see how to do that. But in case of standard form, objective function may be of maximization type or minimization type. The second one, in case of canonical form, all the constraints are of less than or equal to type, right? While in case of standard form, all the constraints are expressed as an equations. Decision variables are non-negative type. All the decision variables are non-negative type in case of canonical form, and all the variables are non-negative, including decision variables. This canonical form is helpful in dealing with duality theory, while standard form, the right hand side of each constraint should be non-negative, right? In standard form, right hand side of each constraint should be non-negative. Now what is canonical form? As per the discussion, we have seen the characteristics of canonical form, right? So objective function is always of maximization type only. So sigma maximize z is equals to sigma j equal to 1 to n cj xj, where xj is the decision variable and cj is the objective coefficient, subjected to linear constraint sigma j equal to 1 to n aij into xj less than or equal to bi, where aij are the constraint coefficient and xj are the decision variables and bi are the right hand side of the constraint. So in canonical form, all the constraints should be of less than or equal to type. If certain constraints are not less than or equal to type, you can convert into less than or equal to type constraint using elementary transformation, and this one is the non-negative constraint. All the decision variables should be non-negative, where I equal to 1 to m and j equal to 1 to n, right? Let's see how to, if particular problem is not in the canonical form, how to convert it into canonical form. any LPP can be converted in canonical form using elementary transformation. So if objective function is of minimization type, it is equivalent to maximum of negative expression max z of y equal to minus f of x. So if this is your objective function of minimization type, right? So minimization type is nothing but negative of maximization type, isn't it? So maximize z of y equal to minus f of x. So this way you can convert your objective function in maximization type. Second is, if the constraint are greater than or equal to type constraint can be converted into less than or equal to type constraint by multiplying both side of inequality by minus 1, right? So if constraint is greater than or equal to type, multiply both side of inequality with minus 1, so you will get the less than or equal to type constraint. An equation may be replaced by two weak inequalities in opposite direction. For example, if the constraint is let's say equation type a1x1 plus a2x2 equal to b can be equivalent to a1x1 plus a2x2 less than or equal to b and a1x1 plus a2x2 greater than or equal to b. Again, greater than or equal to type constraint can be converted into less than or equal to type by multiplying minus 1 on both sides of inequalities. Inequality constraint with absolute form a1 mod a1 x1 plus a2 x2 less than or equal to b. So it can be converted into two decision variables, two constraint a1 x1 plus a2 x2 less than or equal to b and a1 x1 plus a2 x2 greater than or equal to minus b. If variable is unrestricted, it is expressed as the difference between two non-negative variables. If x1 is unrestricted, then it can be expressed as x1 equal to x2 minus x3, where x2 and x3 are greater than or equal to 0. So in certain cases, when decision variables are unrestricted, you can represent that unrestricted decision variable as a difference of two non-negative decision variables. Two non-negative decision variables. We will see that how to do that. So this way you can convert any linear programming problem into canonical form. So canonical form generally used in duality theory. We will see that what is duality theory, what is primal and dual. Now let's say standard form. So in standard form, your objective function of either maximization type or minimization type. So maximize or minimize z is equals to sigma j equal to 1 to n cj xj, where xj is the decision variables and cj is the coefficient of objective function. In case of standard form, all the constraints are represented as an equation with some variables, right? So you can convert the constraint into equation by introducing some non-negative variables like si. So subjected to linear constraint sigma j equal to 1 to n aij xj plus or minus si equal to bi, where xj should be greater than or equal to 0, non-negative constraint, si greater than or equal to 0, non-negative variables, and bi greater than or equal to 0, that is right hand side of the constraint. Now any LPP can be converted in standard form using elementary transformation. So if x1 is unrestricted, as per discussed in the in case of canonical form, it can be expressed as the difference between two non-negative variables x1 equal to x2 minus x3. So x2 and x3 greater than or equal to 0. If right hand side of the constraint is negative, it is multiplied on both sides by minus 1 to make it positive. So in case of standard form, right hand side of the constraint must be positive, right? So if it is not, you can multiply both sides of the constraint with minus 1. Inequality constraint are changed to equality constraint by adding or subtracting a non-negative variable on the left side of such a constraint. Such a non-negative variable is known as slack or surplus variable. So SI that indicates slack or surplus variable. Slack variable represent unused resources either in form of time on a machine, labor hour, money, or any number of such resources in various problems. Since this variable don't yield any profit, therefore such variables are added to the original objective function with zero coefficient. Similar way, surplus variable represents amount by which solution values exceed a resource. These variables are also called negative slack variables. Since this variable don't have any yield or any profit, therefore such variables are added to original objective function with zero coefficient. Now let's say express following linear programming problem in standard form. So we have to convert this problem into standard form. So in standard form, if you remember the characteristics of standard form, right, all the constraints are represented as an equation. So remove inequality from the constraint. So if the constraint is less than or equal to type, you should add slack variable, and if constraint is greater than or equal to type, you should subtract surplus variable. So let's see. So maximize z is equals to 7x1 plus 5x2. So there are two decision variables. First is 2x1 plus 3x2 plus s1 equal to 20. So what this indicates, you can use maximum 20 units of resources, right? You cannot exceed that limit. So in case if the decision variable are such that the consumption of this resource is only 18 unit, so what about the remaining 2 units? So this S1 indicates that unused resources. This S1 indicates unused resources. So this 2 contributes 18 unit of resources, and S1 that we have 2 units of unused resources. So multiplying with this 2, that will give you total resources, right? Similar way, second constraint, 3x1 plus x2 greater than or equal to 10. So you should minimum use 10 units of these resources. You may use 13 units, you may use greater than 10 units, but you should not use less than 10 units. So in case if you use 13 units of these resources, so this S2 indicates minus 3 units, that the limit that exceed by the original value. You should subtract surplus variable. Always remember, slack variable should be added on the left hand side of the constraint, and surplus variable should be subtracted on the left hand side of the constraint. And x1, x2, s1, s2 greater than or equal to 0. Unused, since this unused resources don't yield any contribution to the profit, that's why we are using this variable with 0 coefficient in objective function, right? And the last one is the non-negative constraint. Now just try to convert this problem into a standard form. If you closely observe this problem, see here, non-negative constraint, we surely know that x1 and x2 are non-negative, but we don't know about the x3. So x3 is the unrestricted. So what we have learned in this video, just try to recall it, how to deal with unrestricted variable, and try to convert this problem into a standard form. You may pause the video until you solve that problem. And here you can also check your answers. So I hope you will learn something from this video. And thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for such a more content. In next video we will discuss about simplex method, how to solve problem using simplex method. Thank you. If you like this video, then subscribe to my channel and also like this video and press the bell icon to get the notification. Thank you.